Hello to all dear students. So in continuation with our discussion about the lipid derived autoquests, that is icosanoids, in this video we'll be discussing about actions and pathophysiological roles of icosanoids, and we'll start it with prostaglandins, thromboxans and prostacyclins. First action will check out upon the cardiovascular system. Suppose this is a blood vessel, and when PGE2 acts on the blood vessel, it will produce vasodilation. Whereas PGF2 alpha, it constricts many larger veins including pulmonary vein and even artery. Next action on blood pressure. PGE2, it will produce a fall in blood pressure, and obviously since it produces vasodilation, it may affect in fall in blood pressure. PGI2 is uniformly vasodilator and is more potent hypotensive than PGE2. Thromboxane A2, it also produces vasoconstriction. Lastly, action on heart. PGE2 and PGF2 alpha stimulate heart by weak, direct but more prominent reflex action due to fall in blood pressure. The cardiac output increases. Next, we'll check out the roles of the prostaglandin upon the cardiovascular system. Prostaglandin do not circulate in blood and have no role in regulating systemic vascular resistance. However, PGI2 generated in the vascular endothelium mainly by COX2 appears to be involved in the regulation of vascular tone as a dilator. Next, PGE2 is continuously produced locally in the ductus arteriosus by COX2 during fetal life, keeps it patent. At birth, its synthesis stops and closure occurs. Aspirin and indomethacin induce closure when it fails to occur spontaneously. These prostaglandins may also be important in maintaining placental blood flow. So we need to emphasize, or we need to know more about this point, because I believe just reading you didn't understood this thing. So suppose this is the left atrium and this is the left ventricle. This is the right atrium and this is the right ventricle. I believe you people know left side of the heart deals with oxygenated blood. Therefore, left side of the heart I have shown in red color, whereas the right side of the heart that deals with deoxygenated blood, which I have shown in blue color. Now, from the left ventricle arises the aorta that supplies oxygenated blood to various body parts, and from the right ventricle arises the pulmonary artery, and this pulmonary artery then approaches to the lungs. Now we are talking about the fetal life. During fetal life, these lungs are not well developed, means they are immature. Immature means there is no oxygen in the lungs, and since there is no oxygen in the lungs, the blood vessel which is approaching to the lungs will be having very high pressure. Now which blood vessel approaches to the lungs? Yes, it is the pulmonary artery. The pulmonary artery is approaching to the lungs, and since lungs there is no oxygen, the pressure of the pulmonary artery will be so high that the pulmonary circulation may rupture. Therefore, to solve this problem, to avoid this thing, there is a communication between the aorta and the pulmonary artery, and this communication is known as ductus arteriosus. Okay, so ductus arteriosus is present in the fetal life only, and this is the prostaglandin PGE2 that maintains this ductus arteriosus. After childbirth, this PGE2 stops and therefore the ductus arteriosus closes off. Now just read the second point. PGE2 is continuously produced locally in the ductus arteriosus by COX2 during fetal life, keeps it patent. At birth, its synthesis stops and closure occurs. Okay. So basically this ductus arteriosus is present in the fetal life. So after childbirth, this ductus arteriosus should be closed off. Okay, it should be closed off. But sometimes what happens, after childbirth also, this ductus arteriosus is not closed, it remains open. This condition is known as patent ductus arteriosus. And if the ductus arteriosus remains open, then what will happen, this ductus arteriosus is nothing but this is the communication between the aorta and the pulmonary artery, and when it remains open even after childbirth, so what will happen, this aorta have got a very high pressure, and there is chances that some blood may move back into the pulmonary artery, so this may result in a fall in the cardiac output. So therefore we need to close this ductus arteriosus after childbirth, and for closing it we have got two ways. First way is doing a cardiac surgery where we'll open the heart and ligate it. But cardiac surgery is quite risky. The second option is we can give certain drugs. See, this ductus arteriosus is maintained basically because of PGE2. So what if we supply a drug that will reduce the level of PGE2? So you can see drugs such as aspirin and indomethacin induces closure when it fails to occur spontaneously. Okay, so we can use drugs such as aspirin and indomethacin that will inhibit the level of this PGE2, thereby it will cause closure of the ductus arteriosus. Next, prostaglandins generated mainly by COX-2 along with leukotrienes and other autocoids may mediate vasodilation and exudation at the site of inflammation. Okay, so it is a kind of inflammatory reaction, vasodilation and exudation, thereby causing inflammatory reactions. Next, role of these prostaglandins upon platelets. Now suppose these are your platelets, and from the platelets locally thromboxane is been synthesized, thromboxane A2 is been synthesized, and this thromboxane A2 it will induce aggregation and release reaction. Now suppose this is a blood vessel, and from the vascular endothelium of the blood vessel PGI2 is been released, and the action of this PGI2 is it inhibit the aggregation. Okay, now we'll check out the role. See, this thromboxane A2 and PGI2 have mutually antagonistic action. Thromboxane A2 induces aggregation and PGI2 will inhibit the aggregation. So we know that how these thromboxane A2 and PGI2 are being synthesized. Yes, they both are synthesized from the arachidonic acid, which by the COX enzyme gets converted into PGG2 first and then PGH2, and then this PGH2 move to the platelets to form thromboxane A2, or else it moves to the vascular endothelium to produce PGI2, thereby this thromboxane A2 and PGI2 will produce their appropriate actions. Now suppose we give any COX inhibitor, this COX enzyme inhibitor such as aspirin, if we give, then what will happen? The COX enzyme will fail to produce its action, and therefore there won't be any conversion of arachidonic acid into PGG2. If there is no PGG2, there is no PGH2. When there is no PGH2, then there is no question of thromboxane A2 and PGI2. Okay, so my question is, suppose we give COX inhibitor, then what will be the action of this COX inhibitor upon the platelets? Whether it will produce platelet aggregation or it will inhibit the platelet aggregation. Now the answer is COX inhibitors will cause inhibition of platelet aggregation. The reason is these platelets, they do not have nucleus, but if you talk about the vascular endothelium, the vascular endothelium have got nucleus, and from these nucleus new COX enzymes are being synthesized, and from the COX enzyme PGI2 will be synthesized, thereby producing its action, that is inhibition of platelet aggregation. Okay, next action is upon the uterus. Now suppose this is your uterus. The upper segment of the uterus PGE2 and PGF2 alpha will cause contraction. Okay, so the upper segment of the uterus is uniformly contracted by PGE2 and PGF2 alpha in both pregnant as well as non-pregnant uterus. However, sensitivity is high during pregnancy. However, even during early stages of pregnancy, the uterus is more sensitive to prostaglandins as compared to oxytocin. Now, the lower segment of the uterus, PGE2, will cause relaxation. Now, suppose if we give a drug that is misoprostol, and we know misoprostol is a PGE2 analog, and when we give misoprostol at the early stage of pregnancy, then what will happen? Yes, misoprostol is PGE2 analog, means it will cause contraction of the upper segment of the uterus and relaxation of the lower segment of the uterus. So such an action will cause induction of abortion. Okay, so for induction of abortion also we can use misoprostol when it is taken at the early stages of pregnancy. Next, talking about the role. Now suppose this is your uterus, this one is the placenta, and this is the fetus. The fetal tissue continuously produces prostaglandin, mainly PGF2 alpha, has been detected in the maternal blood. It is postulated that prostaglandins mediate initiation and progression of labor. Aspirin has been found to delay the initiation of labor and also prolong its duration. Next, we'll check out the action of these prostaglandins on the bronchial smooth muscles. PGD2, PGF2 alpha and thromboxane A2, these are potent bronchoconstrictors. PGE2 is powerful bronchodilator. PGI2 is a mild bronchodilator. Asthmatics are more sensitive to constrictor as well as dilator effects of the prostaglandins. PGE2 and PGI2 also inhibit histamine release and are effective by aerosol. However, these anti-asthmatic effect of PGE2 and PGI2 cannot be exploited clinically because they produce irritation of the respiratory tract and have a brief action. Okay, so no doubt PGE2 and PGI2 are bronchodilator, plus they also inhibit the histamine release, but they are not used for asthma treatment because they produce irritation of the respiratory tract. Asthma may be due to the imbalance between the constrictor prostaglandins, that is PGF2 alpha, PGD2 and thromboxane A2, as well as the dilator prostaglandins, that is PGE2 and PGI2. In few individuals, aspirin-like drugs may consistently induce asthma. This is because they block the COX enzyme, and now arachidonic acid is diverted to the lipooxygenase pathway, causing synthesis of leukotrienes. And leukotrienes C4 and D4 are potent bronchoconstrictor and are components of SRSA, that is slow reacting substance of anaphylaxis and asthma. Next, we'll check out the action of prostaglandin on the gastrointestinal tract. Suppose this is an isolated preparation of your intestine, and the longitudinal muscle of the gut, it is contracted by PGE2 and PGF2 alpha, whereas the circular muscle, it is contracted by PGF2 alpha and relaxed by PGE2. Propulsive activity is enhanced in man, especially by PGE2. Colic and watery diarrhea are important side effects. PGE2 acts directly on the intestinal mucosa and increases water, electrolyte and mucus secretion. Next, talking about their role in the gastrointestinal tract. Prostaglandins may be involved in mediating toxin-induced increased fluid movement in secretory diarrheas. In certain diarrheas, aspirin can reduce stool volume but is not uniformly effective. Next, PGE2. PGE2 will protect the stomach from the peptic ulcer by three mechanisms. First is inhibits proton pump so that there is less production and secretion of the gastric hydrochloric acid. Second way is it increases the production of mucus and bicarbonate layer that will give protection to the stomach. And lastly, it causes vasodilation. So whenever vasodilation is there, there will be increased blood supply, offering removal of inflammatory mediators. Therefore, whenever we give any drug that will inhibit PGE2, then it may result in peptic ulcer. Therefore, whenever we give NSAIDs means non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. These are the drugs that will inhibit the cyclooxygenase pathway. And whenever cyclooxygenase pathway is inhibited means there won't be PGE2. So whenever we give NSAIDs, it will produce NSAIDs induced peptic ulcer. And whenever peptic ulcer occurs because of this drug, it can be treated with the help of another drug, that is misoprostol. And we know what is misoprostol. Yes, misoprostol is the analogous of PGE2. It will produce action similar to PGE2, and by this way we can treat the NSAIDs induced peptic ulcer. Next we'll talk about the action of the prostaglandin upon kidneys. Now suppose this is your kidney, PGE2 and PGI2. What it will do, it will increase the water, potassium and sodium excretion and have a diuretic effect. In addition, PGI2, it has got furosemide action. Furosemide action means it will inhibit the reabsorption of chloride. PGE2 also antagonizes ADH action and adds to its diuretic effect. Plus PGE2, PGI2 and PGD2, it evokes renin release. So these all are the action. Next, check out the role of prostaglandins upon kidneys. PGE2 and PGI2 produced mainly by COX2 in the kidney appears to function as intrarenal regulators of blood flow as well as tubular reabsorption in kidney. Accordingly, the NSAIDs, including selective COX2 inhibitors, tend to retain salt and water. The diuretic action of furosemide is blunted by indomethacin, indicating a facilitatory role of prostaglandins by increasing renal blood flow and or augmenting inhibition of tubular reabsorption. Renin release in response to sympathetic stimulation and other influences may be facilitated by prostaglandins. Barter's syndrome, characterized by increased sensitivity to angiotensin II, is associated with increased prostaglandin production. Many of the manifestations are improved by prolonged use of NSAIDs. Next, we'll check out action of prostaglandins upon your central nervous system. Now, suppose this is your central nervous system. Upon intravenous injection, the prostaglandins poorly penetrate and therefore they do not have any central action. However, when they are injected directly into the intracerebral ventricular side, PGE2 produces a variety of effects such as sedation, rigidity, behavioral change, and marked rise in body temperature. PGI2 also induces fever, but thromboxane A2 is not pyrogenic. Next, their role, PGE2 may mediate pyrogen-induced fever and malaise. Aspirin and other inhibitors of prostaglandin synthesis are antipyretic. So we know that, now we came to know that fever may occur because of this prostaglandins. Pyrogens, including cytokines released during bacterial infection, trigger synthesis of PGE2 in the hypothalamus, which resets the thermostat to cause fever. COX2 is a major isoenzyme involved. Selective COX2 inhibitor are equally efficacious antipyretic. Okay, so if we inhibit this COX enzyme, basically COX2 enzyme, so fever can be prevented. Next, prostaglandins may be functioning as neuromodulators in the brain by regulating neuronal excitability. A role in pain perception, sleep, and some other functions has been suggested. Next, their role on the autonomic nervous system. Depending on the prostaglandin species and tissue, both inhibition as well as augmentation of noradrenaline release from adrenergic nerve endings has been observed. Role as prostaglandins may modulate sympathetic neurotransmitter as the periphery. Next, action on the peripheral nerves. Prostaglandins, especially PGE2 and I2, sensitize afferent nerve endings to pain inducing chemical and mechanical stimuli. They irritate mucous membranes and produce long lasting dull pain on intradermal injections. So, these prostaglandins are mediators of pain. To know in detail about the mechanism of how these prostaglandins may induce pain, I have made a separate video about it, and the link for which will be provided in the description box. The role is prostaglandins appears to serve as analgesic agent during inflammation. They cause tenderness and amplify the action of other analgesics. Inhibition of prostaglandin synthesis is a major anti-inflammatory mechanism. Aspirin injected locally decreases pain produced by injection of pregabalin at the same site. Okay, so from this we will come to know this prostaglandin, it not only produces fever, it also produces pain, it also produces inflammation. So what we say, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs which are the inhibitors of cyclooxygenase pathway, it can cure three things at a time, that is, it can treat fever, it can treat inflammation, and it can treat pain as well. Next, their role in eyes. PGF2 alpha, it increases the uveoscleral outflow, thereby it increases the drainage of aqueous humor, and therefore it can be used to treat glaucoma. Therefore we have got the drug latanoprost. Drugs such as latanoprost is a drug of choice in primary open angle glaucoma. Next, talking about the endocrine system. PGE2 facilitates the release of anterior pituitary hormones such as growth hormone, prolactin, ACTH, FSH and LH, as well as that of insulin and adrenal steroids. It has a TSH-like effect on the thyroid. PGF2 alpha causes luteinizing and terminates early pregnancy in many mammals, but this effect is not significant in humans. Though prostaglandins can terminate early pregnancy in women, this is not associated with fall in progesterone levels. Now coming to the last action, that is upon metabolism. PGEs are anti-lipolytic, exert an insulin-like effect on carbohydrate metabolism and mobilize calcium from bone. They may mediate hypercalcemia due to bony metastasis. Okay, so this was all about the various actions and pathophysiological roles of prostaglandin, thromboxane and prostacyclin. I hope you people found this video helpful. Thank you for watching.